and Varonis. You see the employee activity monitoring vendors like DTEX and Observe IT, SureView putting in profiling, and the IAM vendors putting in the identity analytics. And then you see some of the standalone platform vendors, Splunk, Securonix, GuruCall, and Exabeam. And these guys are taking on the SIEM market. They're going to start adding other features, workflow, orchestration, broader security management. They're going directly towards the SIEM market. Obviously, Splunk's already a SIEM, but they're trying to integrate their UBA product. So go to the next slide. But what I've seen out there is these products complement each other, and it really depends on what data they're ingesting. So if you want to look for reconnaissance or exfiltration, network data is obviously the best way to do that, because you see someone scanning your network or taking data out of your network. And here's just a few vendors that are able to parse network data: LightCyber, Vector, Darktrace. SIEM-like data is best for lateral movement. If you're looking at how's the guy moving, how's the process moving, those are vendors like Exabeam. And some of the vendors fall in multiple categories. Database and file monitoring is best if you want to start with data and file access. Agent-based surveillance is best if you really want to watch the employees on managed endpoints. CASB vendors have this functionality for monitoring and analyzing access to cloud applications. And what we're seeing are the vendors are expanding coverage and data sources. So the vendors are trying to read all of this network SIEM data, and it's just a matter of them progressing through the stack. But in the end, we think there'll only be a few standalone UBA vendors, and most of this technology will be integrated with existing products and domains. So in the end, what do we recommend? Well, before you start on an insider threat program, you have to identify a champion. It's a very sensitive thing to implement, and it's usually got to have a restricted team that's really keeping all of this pretty private, and you have to understand what you're going to do when you find infractions. You have to build the policies. You have to achieve stakeholder buy-in. It is a sensitive operation, and you want to make sure that the organization's on board with you. You've got to put policies, governance, and processes in place, education and deterrence programs, and only after you've done all that, you want to go out and look for the technology. Go to the next slide. When you go to the technology side, we went through there's different types of insider threats, and you have to make sure you address these different types of threats, whether they're pawns that are getting phishing emails, or collaborators, lone wolves, or just the goofs that are making mistakes. Don't forget about the human detection methods, like continual insider screening, especially for trusted insiders. I talked to a company, a nuclear facility, that identifies their high-risk employees regularly and brings them in once a quarter for a half a day of questioning, just to keep up with their lives, make sure that they're not presenting a risk. That's kind of what you need to do. It's very labor-intensive, but if someone is in charge of your power grid and has the ability to influence it, you should be interviewing them once a quarter for a half a day at least. There's no substitute for that. And then you can look at the automated analytics. We talked about anomaly detection, supervised models, rules, and insider intelligence. So it's not an easy program to set up, but it's well worth it, because in the end, everybody becomes an insider. It's not just the insiders, the outsiders become insiders when nation states infiltrating your organizations. Technology can help catch them too, not just the employees and the contractors that have become rogue employees, but also the bad actors from the outside. If you have good detection, it can only help with your efforts. And the good news about these systems is they build on what you've already invested in. They use all your investments, or some of your investments, as sources of data to feed the new analytics. And that's where the action is, I think, is in the machine learning that's going on, and bringing that to security. So we've got lots of research if you're interested, and I'm sure Howard Friedman's our rep from partner. He manages all the federal accounts, or a lot of them anyways, and work with Howard to get in touch with any of the analysts or any of the researchers they're interested in, because it's a really fast-moving space, and we always want to share it with end users and talk about it. So hopefully we can reconnect in the future. So that's all I have. Were there any questions? Anyone want to add anything?
There was a question in the back that was going on while you were speaking, and the question was, how do you balance, looking after insider threat with privacy of employees, and they want a little bit more on that.
Well, it's basically the way, first of all, I'm not a lawyer, but what I've seen is that if employees are using enterprise assets, then there really is no privacy rights. If employees want privacy, they should use their own computers and their own home network. They shouldn't be doing it at work. So what we're talking about is monitoring your organizational assets, not telling you to go home and watch what your employees doing in their kitchen or on their mobile phone. And so in that sense, it's fair game because it's organizational assets. Now that doesn't always extend to social media, so then the question is, should you be looking at someone on social media? And I can't really, I don't know the answer to that. That's a legal question. But certainly looking at what someone's doing inside the company email is valid. I mean, it's your company's email system, it's not yours. People need to change their habits and stop thinking like that. Anyone else have anything? You guys have been sitting here too long. Yeah, do you have a question?
Yes, you see any of the products integrated with like VPN and teleworkers to watch them? They kind of come from the outside in.
Yeah, I have. They're basically reading the VPN logs. Exabeam's done that. Puronics has done that. I just talked to a client the other day that's feeding the VPN logs into these UBA products just to monitor the access through the VPN remotely. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
You find that with all these tools out there that are looking at all these massive amounts of data analytics, that some of these organizations don't have very skilled people to go through that data, or not enough manpower to even do it, and it will just become one extra expense.
Yeah, that's a great point. Did everyone hear that?
Hopefully we'll give you a speaker.
Okay, Ron. The question was, with all the tools that are out there and the massive amounts of data that they pull in and the analytics they do, are you finding that some of these agencies and clients out there don't have the skilled professionals to configure correctly and manage, and or even have the resources to sift through all the data that you're going through to make proper judgment?
That's like the most important question that anyone can bring up, I think, is the ability for human beings to absorb all this. And when Donna was talking before, I know she was saying that we need to design systems with the end user in mind, and I thought she was talking about the organization employees. Probably meant that too. She started talking about outside end users. And I think that that's the biggest problem personally, is all these tools. I'm starting to learn more about different tools like EDR, and if I was in the SOC team and I had to look at EDR to find a threat, I would go brain dead. You can't make sense of all this data, and you can't expect people to spend the whole day knowing exactly what to look for and piece it all together. So I don't understand how it's a $500 million market either. The only thing I can think in that case is getting these EDR systems because they've been breached. It's like a black box. When the airplane goes down, at least you got a reporter. But I think that users are starting to demand much better interfaces, and I do see that with the UBA vendors. So not too many of them, but there's a couple of them that do bring all the data together and do the work for you and say, here's the 5 things that you need to look at today. Now, you may not trust the analytics behind that, but that is the direction that these tools are moving. And it needs to move that way, because when I think about why have all the systems failed to stop all the breaches, that's it. Because it's buried in the logs, it's buried in the alerts, but you can't expect a human being to look through 100,000 lines of logs and figure out what happened by correlating 5 of those log lines over the last hour. It's just impossible humanly. So if you think about, I do come from the fraud world, and the fraud market has done a much better job of advanced analytics because it's a simpler world. There's not that many things you can do when you get into a bank account. And in enterprise, there's a lot of things you can do to commit bad acts. But they have done a good job of prioritizing through risk scoring. So when you risk score, then you can say these are the 5 highest risk scores on a scale of 1 to 100. Here's everything over 90. You don't see risk scoring in security systems yet. But that's where this market's going. So I'm optimistic it's going to get better and things are going to come together. And that's why users are attracted to some of these systems, because they do only give you, 5 alerts a day instead of 100,000. So, I think it is promising, but for now it's pretty bleak.
I got an easy question.
Sure.
Are these posted on the website?
Yeah, all these research notes are on the website. Thanks. And hopefully you'll click on it. We can also send it to you. And we monitor clicks too, right? Bad joke. Sorry for my sense of anything else? Anyone want to bring anything up? All right, well, how do we do on time? We got
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for your attention.
All right, folks, that concludes our time here at Union Jacks. We're going to proceed upstairs to the Phoenix TS space, and we have some more sessions for you. If you enjoyed the Insider Threat and want more information, we actually have another session at 4 o'clock, Managing Insider Risk. That's 4 o'clock in Classroom D. Right now we have some sessions going on, some great sessions, cybersecurity, best practices, learn and apply the NIST CSF. We've got AC Council doing a panel as well, so there's some great sessions happening at 3 o'clock. Let's get off our bums, go out and get some fresh air, and we'll see you over at Phoenix TS in just about 10 minutes.